Okay, so we're here at the example table, and in this video we're going to find the difference quotient of the function 2x cubed. So let's just take a moment to remember what the difference quotient is. Let's draw a little picture. So, have a little graph. Let's consider this curve. If we have a line going through it here, the difference quotient is just going to be a slope. So let's call this point here, let's say the x value, well, let's just call it x, and this point over here, let's say it's x plus h. Right, so we start at x and we move over by h. That means in particular that this distance here is h. Well, if we go over to the y-axis and we call this, let's call this f. It's not the same f, well, not necessarily anyway. This is going to be f of x. And this point over here on the y-axis is f of x plus h. What's the slope of this line? Slope is rise over run, right? That means change in y, divided by the change in x. Now, here, the change in y is the difference between these two things. So it is f of x plus h minus f of x. What about the change in x? Well, it's the distance between these two things, and that's just h. So this is our difference quotient. It's a formula that you should know. You shouldn't have to go through this each time. But if you remember it because you go through this a bunch of times, then you're not going to forget it. Remember, difference quotient, just slope. All right, so let's look at our particular example on a clean sheet of paper. So in this case, if f of x is 2x cubed, then f of x plus h minus f of x all over h is, now what about this? X plus h, f of x plus h. This means that anywhere we see an x in the original function, we replace it with x plus h. So we have 2, and in place of x, I write x plus h, and it's that whole thing cubed. All right, that's crucial. Now subtract f of x, so minus 2x cubed all over h. Now we want to simplify. In fact, if all we were told is find the difference quotient, this is it. But really what we want to do is find the difference quotient and then simplify as much as possible. So the first thing we'll do is multiply this out. If you multiply it out just the usual way, it's not quite FOIL because you have 3 terms, but if you multiply it out like that, you'll get what we're about to get. And what I'm about to write down is a nice formula to know. Anytime you cube something like x plus h, it becomes the following. X cubed plus 3x squared h plus 3x h squared plus h cubed. So replace x and h with any other letters or numbers that you want. This is the formula. So we have this, then minus 2x cubed all over h. Now we want to simplify the top. Well, if we multiply the 2 through, we end up with 2x cubed minus 2x cubed. So these cancel. And we're left with 2 times the remaining 3 terms. So this is now 6x squared h plus 6xh squared plus 2h cubed. And this thing still all over h. But now look at the numerator. We have an h in each term. So we can factor this out and we get h times 6x squared plus 6xh plus 2h squared. And this is all over h. So finally, we cancel these h's, and we are left with 6x squared plus 6xh plus 2h squared. And notice that our difference quotient simplified into something that is no longer a quotient. And this is our answer.